Ako urong dito, and I said I would stake my honor, my life, and even the presidency.
Spokesperson Salvador Panelo and Presidential Task Force on Media Security Under Secretary Joel Eco. Good morning, sirs.
Morning.
Opening statement.
Good morning. A pleasant morning to members of the Malacañang Press Corps. Today we have as our guest PCOO Undersecretary Joel C. Eco. He is the Executive Director of the Presidential Task Force on Media Security. Let's welcome him.
Thank you, Secretary Sal Panelo, and good morning to the ladies and gentlemen of Malacañang Press Corps. I missed you. I have prepared a brief statement, opening statement, concerning the latest CPJ report, no, on the Global Impunity Index, and the second part of my presentation will be in PowerPoint. And first, I'd like to read this brief opening statement. On 29 October 2018, the Committee to Protect Journalists released its 2018 Global Impunity Index. In an interesting development, we note with optimism that the Philippines, while remaining at its 2017 ranking as fifth, was noted to have improved its status. But before we jump into the wrong conclusions, we must read the report in its entirety and consider the methodology used by the CPJ in arriving at its findings. Well, number one, the result was expected. And it covered a 10-year coverage from September 2008 to 2018. And it includes the 32 media workers killed in the Maguindanao massacre. Please take note that the CPJ reported 40. So 32 of those 40 are victims of the Maguindanao massacre. And then unsolved cases are defined by CPJ as cases where no convictions are obtained, contrary to the definition of unsolved cases in many jurisdictions around the world, including us. And their survey includes at least 5 unsolved cases in each country, automatically includes it in the list. For instance, Afghanistan was delisted last year, but that unfortunate incident in Kabul, where terrorists blew up, I think 8 journalists, no, caused the re-entry of Afghanistan into the list. Okay, and then the termination of the Maguindanao massacre case will totally change the number of unsolved cases, no, for PH. And the 40 unsolved cases indicated by CPJ need to be clarified and reconciled with the PTFOM's records. So the PTFOMS, or the Presidential Task Force on Media Security, is committed to continually fight for the protection of press freedom and calls on all stakeholders to reach out and foster an atmosphere of inclusiveness and cooperation to fulfill our mandate to protect the life, liberty, and security of media workers. Because for us, failure is not an option. So we'll proceed to the PowerPoint presentation. Let's start. Okay. So today we are going to turn over to Secretary Panelo our second-year accomplishment report dated October 11, 2018. And of course, accompanying that report is our latest contribution to press freedom, which is the Handbook on Personal Security Measures for Media Practitioners. This is a product of our of a very long discussions, no, among our media member agencies and media partners in the task force, no, member agencies of the government, I mean. Next slide, please. So what I'm going to present to you now is the same, almost the same report that I presented to the Senate Committee on Public Information, led by Senator Grace Paul last August 8th. Next slide, please. Of course, the Duterte administration recognizes media's vital role for sustained developmental communications towards continued economic development and social progress. This government also recognizes that a free press is an absolute necessity in attaining the peace and prosperity we are all aspiring for. That is why on October 11, 2016, President Rodrigo Duterte signed Administrative Order Number 1, his very first administrative order, which created the Presidential Task Force on Violence Against Media Workers, also known today as the Presidential Task Force on Media Security. The first task force in Asia and possibly the world with a mandate to protect the life, liberty, and security of all media workers. So, what are the types of risks faced by media workers based on our investigations and observations? Number one is duty. So, the performance of the main functions of a journalist in the practice itself is risky. In fact, I myself was targeted for assassination in 2009 when I wrote something that hurt somebody in our province. No? So, but we were able to prepare, and the gunmen surrendered to us. That's the first level of risk. The second is advocacy. It is a relentless criticisms by a journalist, reporter against subject. It doubles the risk on the part of the media workers. And the last and the most and the highest level of risk is when one goes into a crusade. We define crusade as the crossing over to being another, such as becoming a politician, a businessman, and others. It's no longer about words against words, but swords against swords. It's no longer reporting, but actually filing of cases against subjects of reports, which puts the lives of crusading journalists at very high risks. And we have a number of cases in our hand that prove to that. No. So, what are the acts of violence against media workers, and what are the actions taken and the updates, no, on our records? So the question remains: why are journalists being killed? And these are our observations. Well, for one, I'd like to point out to you that since we were created, we were able to map, no, the incidents of killings in the Philippines. Actually, since 1986 ito, up to present. But for easier reference and following the formula of CPJ, ginawa natin from 2008 to 2018. Dati wala po niyan, smorgasbord lang. When you say media killings in the Philippines, they give you a list without telling where the incidents happened. No? Next slide, please. So if you'd observe, so the most vulnerable regions, we call most vulnerable, not most dangerous. Please take note of that, because even journalists in areas where incidents happened, they don't want no, their regions to be called as such, as most dangerous, kasi napaka-regressive. So most vulnerable, meaning we can address those vulnerabilities. And the top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, up to 6, you'll notice that the regions in Mindanao, no, are on the top. Really, dun talaga pinakamarami. That's why last week I had that Media Security Summit. I attended the Media Security Summit hosted by the Mindanao Independent Press Council. It's a newly organized region-wide organization of journalists in Mindanao. And we have invited them formally to sit among the media observers and resource persons in the task force. So we're giving Mindanao region, journalists in the region, a louder voice in the task force, so to speak. So ito yung top 10. Next. Observation. Ano po ang ating observation? That media killings actually a byproduct of the hostile, violent geopolitical environment. And we realized this when we went around the country. When we held our seminar in the Cordilleras, no, sabi dong mga media doon, ng mga local officials doon dito, sir, wala naman kaming ganyang problema. Wala naman kaming mga warring politicians dito. But when you go to places where politicians are really fighting head-on, andun yung mga incidents, no? Harassment, threats, even killings. So ito yung mga vulnerabilities na sinasabi natin. Next slide, please. So what are the 3 major contributors to the problem? Of course, as I said, there's dirty politics. It's politics, basically. And we noted that many of those killed were actually politicians also. As high as, I think, a board member of the province, no? Yung iba, local, barangay council, barangay chairman, something like that. No? And number two, of course, crime and corruption in all forms. In all forms. And number three, yung vulnerability of the sector of media. When we say vulnerable, it means ito yung mga usual problems na, especially economic vulnerability. So whenever and wherever we go, we went, the same things, they crop up. It's basically the same factors in all areas that we've been through. Next slide, please. So what are the problem indicators? We observe that in anywhere that media killing occurred, ito yung mga indicators natin. Number one, rivalries and infighting among various media groups and practitioners. That's why we observe, pagka buwababa po kami when we investigate, laging yun na sinasabi, yan naman si ganito kasi may problemang ganyan, so on and so forth, no? Meron talagang girian. And I'll explain it later briefly. Number two, yung binanggit ko kanina, economic vulnerabilities. When I was asked one time about the salary range of media workers in the Philippines, all throughout, sabi ko, it's from 0 to 25,000 pesos. So they were shocked. 0? Yeah. Many of them don't even receive compensation. They're not even compensated. Okay? So number three indicator, there's a correlation between media ownership and politics. When we went around, we realized that, and we got information that many local stations, for instance, or local newspapers, they're actually owned by local politicians. Number four, black timers are prone to violence, as shown by our records. There are 21 black timers who were killed, based on our records, no? So there is something not wrong, something amiss, probably, with the system of black timing. So we need to address the vulnerabilities of black timers. But there are also opinions that black timers should not be considered as media workers daw eh. Sabi ko, we cannot do that because based on the definition under AO1, they are considered media workers also. Number five, small entities are usually financed by politicians. And number six, media violence spikes around election season, and it started already. So we are actually doubling our efforts, no, to go around the country and to ensure the security and safety of our colleagues in the media. Next slide, please. So what are the cases of killings and actions taken? You'll be surprised, and in the same manner that the Senate Committee on Public Information was surprised when they found out that we actually have the task force. We have the highest number of monitored killings involving media workers. Some groups are saying there are 9, 12, but we monitored 18. But not all of those 18 are work-related. So on our records, based on our investigations, we have at least 3 to 4 related media worker killings. Next slide, please. Recently, the chairman of the task force, Secretary Menardo Guevara, issued a department order dated 28 August 2018, no? And he appointed prosecutors presently assigned to handle Administrative Order number 35 as concurrent AO1 prosecutors. So there are 353 DOJ prosecutors who have been assigned, who have been appointed as AO1 prosecutors. So kung may mangyari doon sa lugar nila, automatically, they assume that role and they investigate. And then we coordinate with them. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay. Okay. So, Maguindanao Massacre update. This is very important because, as I said earlier, the CPJ report greatly, factored in the Maguindanao Massacre because it happened 9 years ago, and we're going to commemorate the 9th year anniversary of the massacre next month, and we have prepared a series of activities to that effect. So as of October 2018, the prosecution has so far presented 191 witnesses, including the private complainants and those who have been recalled, while the accused have already presented 104 witnesses for defense evidence in chief. And I'd like to add that one of the updates in the Maguindanao Massacre case, medyo may kaunting problema dyan because there are Andal Ampatuan Jr., no? One of the principal accused, was supposed to present two witnesses, no? Government witnesses who recanted. That's why last September I went to Maguindanao and talked to the camp of Governor Maguda Datu to find out what's really happening there. And it turned out that, yun na nga, during the trial, they manifested that they have two government witnesses that recanted. Next slide, please. Okay, but according to the CPJ, we have very low conviction rate, no? But as we went around, we discovered that during the same period, 2008 to present, there are already 11 convictions in cases of media killings. So yung iba nasa 3 pa lang eh, ano mo monitor nila. The more important thing that we do here is that we really go down to the grassroots. In fact, we went to the barangays, no? Yung mga forgotten, almost forgotten cases, pinupuntahan po namin yan, yung mga lulutang-lutang dati noon sa Ligwasan March na sinabing media worker daw yon. We reinvestigated. But ang nakakalungkot, walang record sa barangay, walang record sa police. In fact, we went to the supposed radio station where the victim reportedly used to work. And when I personally interviewed officials of the station, sabi nila wala yata kaming ganon. But sabi ko, it was reported in 2012 that the victim was a black timer in your station. Sir, wala pong ganon. Meron kami dito, yung treasure hunter na ganon, who was a former counselor in a barangay, I think in Sultan Kudarat, something like that. However, we continue to gather all those pieces of information so that we can finally come up with a clear inventory of all cases that we have. Like for instance, we have received yesterday no report from Mindanao City also na ayaw na ng pamilya. So hindi isa-isa po talaga namin. So these are actually 11 yung convictions, but kung mapapansin po nyo, 12 yung victims. Kasi yung number 8 kay Bonifacio, Loreto at Richard ko considered one case. Next slide, please. So, work-related killings, briefly. Next slide. Yung kay Larike, and then kay Chris Lozada. I represented the case of Chris Lozada here in February. Next, kay Kuyang Dennis Denora. I met his wife last week. And yung kay Joeliana of Albay. So, the non-work-related killings. So we have 14 eh. Sige, please continue. Apollinarios 1 was a former bukal, no? He was a former politician. Yung nagko-crossover. So karaniwan talagang nangyayari. Ang problema natin dyan, once na nag-crossover na into somebody else, talagang nagkakaroon doon ng problema. But when somebody is killed, ang report is media worker. Like yung kay Carlos Matas, I'll show you later. Sige, next slide please. Mario Contawi was a former, 2 years nang retired siya bago siya napatay. Marlon Muico. Sige sir. Okay, kay June Briones. Sige, tuloy na lang natin. Yung sa Marisigan Brothers. Please continue. Leo Diaz. Rudy Alicaway. Kay Alexi, yung DJ. And kay Edmond Sistoso. Yun kay Carlos Matas. When he was killed, I was interviewed by some of our friends and sabi ko, we're going to act on that case. And then, ito po yung resulta nung operations na nag-follow up. Napatay yung 3 suspects. But then again, after the successful operation, nakuha lahat yung 4, nahulit, patay yung 3. Yun na, wala nang follow-up story, but it's okay. Next slide, please. Okay, Manny Laksamana, he was my friend. But he was not killed for being a journalist. Jessicano, next slide, please. Doon tayo sa yung pinaka-last. Okay, ito yung kay yung huling-huling pumasok sa amin na case. Ang person of interest dito ay yung kanyang sariling asawa. Next slide, please. Okay, threats against the life, liberty, and security of media workers. Next slide, please. So these are the list of people, of journalists we helped. They are more than 30. So in various, ano po ito, various, may online, may physical, meron dyan na kaibigan natin na kilala sa media, sinakal ng sariling kapatid. Next slide, please. So we have our proactive measures. Kasama na po ito, yung media security handbook natin na pinamimigay po natin sa lahat. We have a campaign against online threats and harassment. Next slide, please. Continue. Ang latest po dito, yung the case of Julia Lipala. And we we managed to ask Facebook to take down the post of the, so mayroon tayong red flagging, and Facebook promised that we are going to effectively coordinate with each other. So we have our protocols, our handbook. We continue to conduct our regional seminars. We're going to Iloilo in December. Ito yung 7th, if I'm not mistaken, or 6th leg. The sixth leg of our regional seminars, where we introduce AO1 and PT forms to all stakeholders there, media, police, AFP, and BIDOJ. Next slide, please. Okay, let's continue. Red flag. When I say red flag, I write somebody who threatened the media practitioner na ikaw mananagot pagkakuan kasi merong reklamo sa amin. Next slide, please. Yan po yung mga sample ng ating mga regional seminars. Bawan. Okay, we partner with international organization also through diplomatic channels, especially the DFA. Next slide, please. Malapit na ito. Recommendations and proposals. We have that Vision 2020 action plan. Meron yung mga UNESCO suggested formula kasi, and we're following that up. In fact, on November 7, we're going to actively attend the creation of the National Action Plan for media safety, by the Asian Institute of Journalism and Communications. Next slide, please. Okay, tuloy natin. So we have strategy, presence, collaboration, influence, etc. Next slide, please. Thank you. So that ends my presentation, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Secretary Panelo.
Thank you, Undersecretary Joel Eco. MPC questions? Pia?
Sir, how many media killings have we recorded in the past 10 years?
Past 10 years, we have recorded, ang interesting po dito, ang sinasabi ng CPJ 40, right? But in our list, we have 102. But not all of those, but those 102 includes cases that have already been resolved, prescribed, so ganun yun. So nobody's left behind, yung po ang ating kasing policy. So we continue to monitor each case. So madami talaga sa amin.
Not all are work-related?
Yes. And marami doon wala na. Prescribed na. Prescribed na, hindi mo na hindi, not prescribed. May conviction pa, Ano yan merong classifications kami.
Sir, may project ba tayo for the 2019 midterm elections to ensure the safety and security for media
We're
workers?
going around now. Yun nga, yung nakikipag-coordinate tayo. Remember that sa task force kasi, very active dyan ang KBP, NUJP, NPC, the Philippine Press Institute, the Publishers Association of the Philippines, and yung AIJC nga, Asian Institute of Journalism, and also the CMFR. So we regularly meet and we assess. That's why sa Mindanao, nagpunta kami agad doon, miniting namin sila agad, sineminar na dito, grabe dito, pag eleksyon. So ito yung mga gagawin ninyo. So they get to meet there and discuss among themselves ano yung mga security measures. I went to Maguindanao and I asked the media there, headed by John Uson of the Philippine Star. Siya presidente doon. Sabi ko, pare, how are you here now after the Maguindanao massacre? Sabi niya, you write me an official letter, I'll reply to you an official letter that we're okay. Wala namang na-threaten na sa amin ngayon dito, wala napatay after that. So we go around, really.
Okay.
Sir, what about projects or measures to address yung expected nating surge ng online harassment of media workers during the 2019 elections?
Yeah, thank you.
Meron ba?
Thank you for asking that. We had a meeting with Facebook officials from the public policy division. You know, the problem is this. Facebook has a dilemma. You know what the dilemma is? Because there are true accounts that behave like trolls, and there are troll accounts that behave like real people. So they have certain community standards that they have to follow. For instance, pag minura ako, tinreten ako, pinagmumura ako, I cannot just tell Facebook take that down because eventually I may be able to use that as evidence, no, against that person if I'm going to file a case. So medyo hirap sila doon. So we can only coordinate with Facebook. We clarify that. We cannot tell them what to do. They cannot tell us what to do. So we're crafting now. We're going to actively engage with each other. They will accompany us in future seminars because Facebook also has their own safety seminar online. Umiikot sila. So ano lang natin. We're going to marry our efforts, coordinate, and then we go together around.
MPC, Tina, we will entertain 2 more questions kasi mukhang nagmamadali yata si ano. Mukhang may nahabol si Secretary Panelo para makapagpresita tayo. Tina, please.
Yusek, na-identify nyo ba, categorize yung killings, media workers killed because of their expose on corruption?
Yes.
Vis-a-vis because they are corrupt and some members of other agencies are going after them because of corruption issues?
Like for instance?
Like ACDC journalists who are killed.
Yeah.
How do you categorize
Laging issue yan.
them?
The most interesting issue when we go around yan. So, journalists, they ask about it. So, Yusek, are you going to protect also ACDC or house shows? Sabi ko, ang lagi ko reply dyan, my mandate is to protect media workers, not extortionists. So, if there are cases like that in your area, kayo po ang magpupulis dyan, not me. Kasi pagka... For example, meron ako sabihan, alam mo, ikaw, may issue sa'yo, corruption. But to answer you bluntly, yes, I have sent messages to some practitioners who were subjects of intelligence reports to me na gumagawa ng kalokohan. So, sinasabi ko sa kanila, I got this information. In fact, ako mismo nagtanong, ganito ka daw, etc., etc. Bro, tigilan mo yan kasi baka mapahamak tayo. Mas malaking problema natin. So, nakikita po natin yon. But of course, it's taboo. No? If we're going to discuss that dati, ngayon, buti na lang openly, we can discuss that. And yes, na-segregate naman natin, nalalaman natin through the help of our media colleagues also.
So just on another follow-up. So sa mga seminars nyo po na nabibigay nyo yung message na ganyan sa mga, even sa probinsya.
Yes.
And also, if there are reports of corruption, how are you coordinating with the offices yung mga agencies involving reporters or some media personnel who are using the power of the press to do illegal activity?
Yan, oh. It's a concern mostly we place on the shoulders of our media partners. For instance, kung member siya ng National Press Club, ina-alert namin agad. Kung KBP, no, sinasabi natin agad na may ganitong problema si Kwan, si ganyan, may ganitong report. Because we cannot police them, no, although I am a journalist by heart up to now. I was a former editor of a newspaper. Pero ngayon kasi iba na eh. So laging nag-crossover na rin ako eh. Yun yung sinasabi kong crossover. I cannot act now as a journalist, no? So I cannot wear 2 hats at the same time. So laging pagka kinausap ko, ito na naman si Jose Gaygo, kay kailamang gobyerno. I cannot do that. So I leave it up with the media partners.
Okay.
Thank you.
One last question for Yusek Eiko. Secretary Panelo, okay lang? 2 questions. Last 2 questions for Yusek Eiko. Joseph and last kay Maricel. Okay.
Sir, let's just fine-tune your 102 na
Yes.
figures. No?
Yes,
So ano to? Na-segregate nyo na yan na when you say 102 talaga media workers yan?
Not really.
Can we subtract the non-media workers?
Based on, tingnan natin yung sa yung CPJ, 40 yung sinasabi nila.
What are you saying now? 102 figure mo? or
102
less?
ang figures because our policy is that nobody's left behind. Kumbaga, kahit yung hinold up, na napatay, kinukuha namin kasi baka mamaya pinag-aaralan namin, baka kunwaring hold up lang. So eventually, like in the case of Alexei Balongaita, the Cebu DJ, I was there when she was killed the night before eh. So inimbestigahan namin, she was able to shoot the perpetrator. Nabaril niya sa pisngi, and then naagaw sa kanya, nabaril siya sa dibdib, then she died. Pero nakuha natin yung suspect sa ospital. Dala-dala yung cellphone, etc. So yung case ni Alexei, nasa atin din. So everything, everybody included, tinitingnan natin talaga isa-isa. But I would agree with the CPJ when they say nasa 40 lang yan. So our next, yung media related, yes, like yung Maguindanao Massacre, talaga man nag-cover sila in 32 eh. So ang hindi namin ma-account ngayon yung 8. So 40 minus 32, may 8 pa. That's why we're going to write CPJ and clarify what are those other 8 cases. Baka kasi may conviction na doon eh. So yun ang kuha natin. Our ano is, ang context kasi, hindi yung agad-agad pag may namatay, sasabihin, dinideclare media worker killing, media killing, because black timer, etc. Kina-contextualize natin, pumupunta tayo sa baba, kinakausap lahat, to establish really kung talaga bang work-related. And sa most cases, hindi eh.
The 102, you cannot parang separate the data na talagang work-related?
We have, marami kasi yan, meron ng on trial, merong under investigation, merong for re-investigation. My point is, talagang lahat sila hindi isa-isa natin. And I think may conviction, right? So yung
When you say conviction, established na it's work-related, yun ba yun?
Like in the case of Doc Jerry Ortega.
Okay, so may mga ganun na kailangan may determination of what really happened
Yes,
in the
ang
case.
mahirap kasi po sa CPJ, ang bigat ng definition nila ng solved, that it should be the court, di ba? Na magsabi na solved yan, solved. Eh, alam mo naman dito sa atin, when I was in a meeting with the UNESCO official before, and there was a Pinoy lawyer with me, so I told him, you ask attorney, sabi ko, how long it takes for the Philippines to litigate a simple theft case. Sabi niya, 5 years. So, na-shock yung UNESCO. So, imagine this murder ang pinag-uusapan natin. So, ang hirap talagang ma-attain yun na kailangan court daw, court. So, medyo nahirapan tayo doon.
So right now, your data is 102 media men who were killed. But as to this intention, you cannot yet establish whether it's work-related or not. Yes?
We were able to establish already, but yung pinaka, I will, maybe after this, I will email to you.
Because doesn't worry you na you have a higher figure than the CPJ?
No. The CPJ figure kasi, again, yung kanila, sinasabi, in relation to their work. But
that's why I'm asking your data in relation to their work.
In relation to their work, let's follow the CPJ report.
So you're adopting it?
No, not really adopting.
You said follow.
I mean, it's not really following or adopting it, but we agree with that data. Okay, so andun na yung 32 Maguindanao Massacre, plus yung other 8, that may be in our, definitely, it's probably, definitely, I mean, it's in our list already.
Okay.
But it doesn't, yun nga, yung we should not jump into wrong conclusions na kasi ganun, kagrabe, etc. When in fact, yun nga, kahit yung sinakal nung asawa, nasa records din namin.
Last question, please.
MPC reminder lang, ha? May nahabol yatang flight siya, no, si Secretary Panelo.
Sir, just one last.
Sige,
Yep.
one last kay Joseph. And
What is
after
the
that, kay
agency's
Secretary Panelo.
attitude towards online harassment?
Agencies, what?
Your agency's attitude about
well,
online harassments of media workers?
Yeah, of course. That's we give that focus really, like di ba yung nangyari sa'yo. But there are 1,000 ways to skin a cat. Like yung kay Joseph dati, I'm sorry, inano ko lang yon, di ba? I did something there to avoid anything untoward from happening. Pero ang mahalaga kasi dito, yung partnership, for instance, with Facebook. So nag-usap na kami, pwedeng i-report sa kanila, and then they check their community standards. Kung pareho, ite-take down nila. If not, meron pala silang law enforcement division.
Sige na.
Yung
Sige,
secretary,
masyado ng 1 hour ka na.
Sec Panelo, sir.
Sino? Ako na.
Question kay Secretary Panelo. First question kay...
Sir, on the
Question,
militarization
yeah.
of BOC. Your statement on the militarization of BOC.
Oh, I have already made a statement. There are certain quarters raising the issue on unconstitutionality. But then again, as we said earlier, the provisions of the Constitution is very clear. One, it says civilian authority is supreme over the military, and the president precisely is the head of government, head of state. And so when he makes those orders, it's constitutional, though. There is a provision in the Constitution which says, specifically Article 16, if I'm not mistaken, Section 5, that no armed forces of the Philippines member can be appointed or designated. But the president is not appointing or designating any particular member of the armed forces. As we said earlier, these people will be there first to make their presence felt, to create the military presence that hopefully will intimidate those corrupt people there. Number two, to assist them. Now, we must not forget that under Article 2, Section 2 and 3 of the Constitution, it says that the primary duty of the government is to serve and to protect the people. The head of that government is the president. So in protecting and serving the people, the president has to consider that, one, there should be peace and order. Number two, he should consider the general welfare of the people. And let us not also forget that earlier on, the president has declared a state of lawlessness. And the provision of the Constitution says when there is lawless violence, then the president can call out the armed forces of the Philippines. Now, the lawless violence certainly would refer to what is happening in BOC. There is a state of lawlessness there. If you can bring in hundreds of kilos of drugs, then there must be some grave wrong in that area, and there is a state of lawlessness there. It violates the law, it violates the Constitution. Now, it endangers the security of our countrymen. Certainly, the president will have to do something about it. Now, if people, those critics will insist on Article 16, Section 5, saying that no member of the armed forces can be appointed or designated, you know, this provision has to be considered in relation to the previous provisions that I have already cited. You cannot make this president hostage to a particular provision without relating to previous provisions that grant him the authority as well as the obligation and the duty to serve and to protect this nation.
Okay. MPC question. Follow-up, Tina?
So, sir, yung prevalent corruption in the BOC, sakop yun ng provision on lawlessness.
Oh, definitely, because
Declaration.
when you say lawless violence, it's not just physical violence. You do violence to the Constitution, you do violence to the law, that's a state of lawlessness.
Thank you, Tina. Joseph?
Sir, clarification, lawlessness is not equivalent to lawless violence, or in your opinion, they're equivalent?
State of lawlessness would include state of lawless violence.
Okay, so violence not in the not as we understand it in layman speak, no? But you're saying violence against the Constitution.
Not as we understand in the limited sense.
Okay, so so there's a need to suppress.
Yes, precisely the Constitution says to prevent. One is to prevent. If there is none yet and there is one coming, then the president can prevent it.
All right, assuming that that you can do it operationally, what should we see at the BOC?
Well, as I said yesterday, initially they would be there, making their presence felt, and they will assist. You know, I think the very mere presence of these people there would, I think, do something right.
When you say assist, in what kind of form, sir?
Being there would be assisting them in that sense.
Kumbaga, naglagay ka ng gwardiya.
Yeah, effectively, ganun ang mangyayari.
Or
Kaya
display.
siyempre, kumbaga, ino-audit mo sila, tinitingnan mo. And siyempre, before you can audit, you have to know the procedure also.
Will they take over the functions of the agencies, the agents there?
Sa ngayon, hindi. But if it comes to a point na kailangan, the Constitution allows it. I will disagree with those who say that you cannot do it.
Okay, assuming nga, sir, parang kailan sila mag-take over ng mga function? We're
Then-
talking about them physically doing what the
Then
customs agents are doing.
that would depend on the assessment of the Customs Commissioner designate.
So as of now, the order of the president is just, when your interpretation, nandun lang for display, for presence.
Well, the order of the president is to Customs Commissioner do what is needed to be done there.
Meaning,
Meaning...
up
then
to what point?
Guerrero will have to assess what is required, and he will do it.
So sir, parang ano lang, deployment lang, na parang...
Siguro ngayon, I
Checkpoint.
do not know exactly what the Commissioner Guerrero would do. But
Okay.
he has the blanket authority from the President to do what is required under the law.
As far as pwede din silang takeover of physical functions of the people there. Meaning they're going to do the auditing and the screening and everything.
Right now, yes. Tignan ang mangyayari. But depending nga kay Commissioner Guerrero, hindi pa natin alam eh. He has not said anything about how he will do it. We have to give him the chance, the leeway, the opportunity to assess the situation. And then I'm sure he will be reporting to the President and to the nation what is to be done.
Thank you, Joseph. MPC, reminder lang, baka pwede, one question, two follow-ups. Okay lang. Para, entertain lang muna tayo sa ano. Kay Julie Aurelia from PDI, does Malacañang consider this to still be in effect? If so, how does Malacañang plan to work around EO 292 to support the legality of the AFP's takeover of the BOC temporarily?
Ano yan? 282? Ano yan? What provision is that?
EO 292, sir.
It's Section 17 general provisions that do not allow the detail of AFP personnel to civilian positions.
Oh, that is preceded by, as I said, that's only a circular. This is a constitutional provision I'm citing.
Nonetheless, sir, what happens to the chain of command at the military, at the armed forces?
The chain of command, the president is the supreme, top. So they'll be following the chain of command. In fact, the General Galvez has already issued that he will follow the instructions of the president.
Nonetheless, can the active personnel follow the retired General Guerrero in orders? Can active soldiers or military officers follow retired General Leon Guerrero bilang civilian leader in the BOC?
They're following General Galvez. The instruction of General Galvez is to go there and assist.
Do you expect them carrying their firearms, short or long, within the VOC compound?
I'm not sure about that. I do not know. It depends on General Galvez.
Thank you,
It's
Tina.
his call.
Raymond, one question, two
So,
follow-ups.
just to clarify, in the first place, seryoso ba ang Pangulo?
He's never been not serious in any of his undertaking as president of this country.
So, he really meant to deploy military.
Well, certainly, of course. He has directed the Armed Forces of the Philippines and the AFP through its Chief of Staff has issued a directive that it will follow the instructions of the President.
Sir, you mentioned the word kanina, they will be there to intimidate. Can you expound?
Now, what I mean, we Filipinos look at the traffic. If the policeman is not there, most commuters or drivers violate the law. You put a policeman there, and suddenly they're all in line. That's what I meant.
Thank you, Secretary. Other matters, MPC? Customs. Joseph.
Sir, talk to the customs employees now, no? Now, given what the president had said, ano ba ang dapat nilang gawin?
Well,
Do they stay in their position or are they in floating status? Because of what the president said, that the military will take over the
I think they
BOC.
should wait for the official memorandum coming from the head of the BOC.
From the BOC. And wala pang forthcoming.
We have to ask the designate BOC commissioner.
As
Meanwhile, I think the service is continuing. There is no complaint that something has gone awry there with respect to paperwork, paper processing.
so absent that memorandum, sir, we status quo.
Well, what do you mean status quo?
Absent that memorandum.
Well, right now they're still operating.
Yes. So wala yung military, when do we start seeing the deployment of our guards
We
there?
will have to wait for
Guerrero.
the commissioner designate as well as the instruction of the AFP chief of staff, following the instruction of the commander-in-chief.
Would you say, sir, that the directive of the president is clear as far as what he wants to do with
Well,
the
certainly,
BOC?
because the AFP chief of staff has already issued a directive,
Mhm.
which means it is clear to him what he will do.
Okay. Okay.
Still on BOC questions, MPC? Lipat na tayo. Okay, sir, patanong lang po ni Ms. Tina Maralit. May nabanggit si SLJ Guevara about Representative Nograles being appointed as Cabinet Secretary. Any truth to this, and for which department, sir?
He is one of those being considered. The announcement will be made by the president himself as to the other members of the cabinet who will replace those who filed their certificates of candidacy.
Sure, in connection with that, from PR Aniada, can you confirm what DOJ Secretary Guevara said, that military personnel will be detailed or seconded to the BOC? Thus, there is no appointment to speak of who will use these detailed orders. Is this enough to fulfill the constitutional requirement that military cannot be designated a civilian position in any capacity?
I think that question has already been addressed earlier.
Thank you, Secretary. Questions? Maricel. Maricel Pia.
Good morning. Sir, just to follow up on the Cabinet Secretary, you mentioned that Congressman Nograles is one of those being considered for the
Yes.
position. Who
Yes.
are the other people being considered,
I
sir?
don't know the others, but I know I've heard of him as one of those leading.
So, ibig sabihin, sir,
Nominees.
hindi pa sigurado na siya yung magiging next Cabinet Secretary despite the announcement of Secretary
let's
Guevara.
just wait for the president to announce. It's the president's call.
Sir, aside from the Cabinet Secretary, meron pa ring other positions na vacant. Sino-sino na po yung mag-fill up ng positions na yon? Because I understand you mentioned last week that Malacañang will announce it this week.
Yeah, that's what the president told me. So let's just wait for the announcement. It is forthcoming,
Thank you, Maricel.
most likely after Undas.
Salamat, Maricel. Pia Gutierrez.
Sir, what about reports that Senator Gringo Honasan will be the DICT head?
No confirmation yet.
Thanks, sir.
MPC, questions? Okay na? Baka may question pa kayo kay Yusek Eco.
Si Rico Puno nga pala, namatay na. Kaibigan ko yun. Si Rico J.
Statement.
Well, we express our condolences to a legend that is Rico J. Puno. He has contributed a lot in the music industry. And personally, we had a duet, I think, must be 4 years ago in my show. He's a personal friend.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Presidential Spokesperson Salvador
Ladies and
Panelo.
gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
Baka may question pa kayo kay Yusek Eco. Papaunahin lang natin si Secretary Panelo.
Ano naman, tapakan. Thank you.
Amo siya lang?
Thank you.
Okay. Maraming salamat, MPC, Yusek Eco, Secretary Panelo.
Thank you, thank you.
Balik tayo sa Radyo Pilipinas and PTV4.